Greetings, this is Angelus de Mortiel with another multiplayer build guide for Dragon Age Inquisition. Today we're going to take a look back at the Templar class again, but this time in the leader role. The leader is any class that has skills for buffing allies and debuffing enemies. The Templar has some of the best pure leader skills and is one of the few, possibly only classes that can be built as a pure leader. While some may prefer builds revolving around the Templar's nuking capability, this is a build designed more for someone wanting something very different. As this is a second build for the Templar, it is going to be a bit more abbreviated, focusing on skills affecting the Templar's ability as a leader only. First, we have Blessed Blades. Blessed Blades creates a fixed, consecrated circle on the ground that causes allies to do more damage to enemies when they stand within it. The passives, Champions of the Just, Maker's Will, and There Is No Darkness, all are augments to Blessed Blades, as from what I can tell, they only apply to players that are standing within the consecrated area of Blessed Blades. It's important to note this, as this is really what gives the utility of Blessed Blades. Now, I have heard that the damage bonus from Blessed Blades only applies to demons, plus a few other enemies if you have the Mage Slayer passive. While in my playing the Templar, I have not experienced this myself, and furthermore it seems rather unlikely given the presence of the passive Champions of the Just that only activates with Blessed Blades. I do want to be clear that the possibility does exist. The upgrade, Lights in the Shadow, reduces the cooldown of Spell Purge by a half second per basic attack. This is helpful as having Spell Purge available when it's needed is extremely important. Yes, this also affects Wrath of Heaven, but we're not talking about that because that is not in this build. Next, we have Spell Purge. Spell Purge is a non-targetable version of Dispel. It neutralizes hazardous status effects on allies and strips beneficial effects from enemies. Its upgrade, Spell Shatter, deals 600% spirit weapon damage in Spell Purge's 5-meter area of effect if it strips any enemy of beneficial effects, such as Barrier. It is important to note that if any enemy within the AoE has a beneficial effect dispelled, all enemies in the area of effect are damaged, even if they themselves were not dispelled. After that, we have Horn of Valor. Horn of Valor gives all allies a 50% bonus to damage and armor for 10 seconds. Now, the part at which it's not clear is in its upgrade, That's the Spirit. It is debated that That's the Spirit adds an additional 35% damage to the original 15%, making a 50% damage bonus. However, some have determined that that is actually not true, and it only increases it to 35%, meaning that it's a 20% bonus from the base. This is probably the cornerstone leader ability, as it increases the team's damage output immensely while buffing their defenses a bit as well. Finally, we have Bodyguard. Bodyguard is an AoE damage mitigation ability with a special mechanic. Allies within the area of effect of Bodyguard will see 50% of their incoming damage transferred to the Templar. The upgrade, Not Today, grants the Templar a 50% damage reduction to the damage transferred to them. The passive, Unyielding, grants 5 seconds of invulnerability if the Templar goes down to 5% health. These both add some survivability to the Templar in the event you or a teammate start taking a high degree of burst damage. Since this build uses the passive Flow of Battle, using gear that increases your cunning and critical chance is advised to help reduce the cooldowns of all of your skills. Now, a quick word on strategy for those unfamiliar with a pure leader role. Firstly, despite the reflex instinct, you do not want to rush into the fight first. If you do, you are likely not to be near your teammates, meaning that Blessed Blades and Bodyguard are not being utilized. Instead, you want to stay near your range damage classes, especially the quote-unquote glass cannon types, as you will both massively increase their damage and keep them alive. Next, if you see an ally affected by a status effect such as Burning, Slow, or Fear, use Spell Purge on them. If an enemy starts casting a spell, you can also interrupt them proactively with Spell Purge, or remove its effect reactively. Finally, if you have your allies covered, your secondary objective is cleanup. If an enemy gets too close to your ranged damage classes, bludgeon them to death. This multitasks both as taking the heat off of your glass cannon allies and reducing your cooldown times with Lights in the Shadow and Flow of Battle. This is a vastly different take on the Templar. Some will not enjoy it as much as the nuker style that most people build for, but for those that are looking for something new, or are a veteran player looking to support newer players without doing all of the work for them, then this build is for you. Again, as I always say, this is not the best build. There is no such thing as a best build. Have another way to build the Templar? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed the video or have something to say, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, this is Angelus de Mortiel, signing off.